Hello.
Hi, Dad.
Hi.
How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, Steve.
Good. You feel like telling me any stories tonight?
Yeah, I just been sitting here doing some thinking after a long day,
That's
and
good.
I vividly remember some moments in my life, and I jotted it down. It's kind of I call it the language of God. It's really about my search for God and His creative whispers as He answered. So, let me tell you about it.
All
It
right,
was a long
great.
time ago, yeah, it was a long time ago, but I remember very vividly some things. I had wandered into a temple, a Buddhist temple, in an unintended destination on a beautiful morning in the sprawling city of Bangkok. I had no intentions of attending church that beautiful morning. In fact, I was at the time struggling with the whole idea of God and worship. I had been traveling with a group of Presbyterians, pastors, and leaders, and we were going through 7 Asian countries, attempting to teach our gracious guests how they could adopt their own orphans. The Vietnamese War, with all of its horrible impact, especially on children, was finally over. And well, the night before, Sunday evening, I sought out the only evangelical congregation that I could find, a Baptist church. Arriving late, lucky to find a place, they were sharing a film. It was something about the second coming of Jesus and the end of the world. The next morning, I found myself wandering aimlessly, which I often did. Rather foolish, but, well, I could do it, I guess, in those days, and it allowed some fascinating, life-changing moments for me, just wandering. And that morning has been etched on my mind ever since. I was wonderfully lost. I chanced to come upon a small Buddhist temple. Staring at the architecture, I was amazed. It was a stone structure. Its edge is low. It was a large building. It would hold several hundreds of people. But the edges were low as kind of part of the natural landscape. Some vines and trees, tree-like bushes, were snuggled next to the perimeter walls, and I could hear birds singing their hearts out up in the vines and tree branches. And I remember thinking, probably said it out loud, choir practice. Well, the roof of the temple sloped upward from the outside walls like a very large tent. The roof seemed to be stone, but thinking back, it was probably a stone-colored material of some kind. Anyway, I remember feeling a sense of agreement with the architect. Then I timidly moved towards what I assumed was the entryway, only to stop and watch a grandmother and a very small boy. She made a purchase of a small canary-like bird in a cage. The cage was made out of vines or something. Now, this guy was maybe a street merchant or maybe a lesser priest. Embarrassing myself by staring at the transaction, I remember I followed the movement of the people as they entered this fascinating building. Eventually finding myself a seat. As I sat, my mind raced, unable to, probably because I was in church, unable to forget the harsh message of the movie I'd seen the evening before. Even the background music of that film was scary. And the picture splashed again on my mind, the second coming of Christ. But slowly I began to relax, whether I wanted to or not almost. In that garden-like temple, a strange thing began to take place. It was like I was beginning to understand the language being chanted by an old priest. Astonishingly, maybe it was, but, well, something about the rhythm, the tone. I felt a deep peace. I remember that. I remember remembering my friends on the other sides of the world. And I remembered whispering to myself, Shalom, Salam. Then I noticed that the grandma and the little boy, they slowly were making their way, I think the word is reverently, towards the altar, which was right in the center of this big, huge, round temple. And the little boy, he handed a small wooden cage to the priest. I stiffened. I can remember that. Pagan sacrifice, I snarled privately. I can imagine what was going to happen. But I imagined wrong. Together, the priest and the child opened the cage door. And the little bird, pausing for a second, leaped out, spreading its tiny wings. He did a couple of wide circles as if he was checking out the crowd. Then each circle gaining altitude, he darted quickly out of an amazingly large, creatively designed round hole in the center, just directly above the center altar. Out and up and free into the morning sky. You know, I'm not sure my volume level, but a yes escaped my mouth. Then, in sort of a whisper-like move, the old grandma rested her hand on the boy's shoulder, seeming clearly to say, like all they had was each other. The grandma shyly turned, and momentarily we locked eyes, and the stranger, me, we almost smiled. I did, though. I nod and whispering, yes, yes. And I remembered thinking, we belong to the same church. Years later, I demanded of our church building committee a full glass wall in front of a waterfall, and anybody sitting in the church pews would have this full view of a waterfall made of 20-ton boulders, and multiple streams of water came dancing down over the boulders to a generous pool, large enough for baptisms and fish. We did a lot of baptisms there, by the way. And oh yes, I insisted a 20-foot glass door could be automatically opened, so worshipers could hear the natural roar of water splashing over the boulders, while staring at a replica of an empty tomb just outside of Jerusalem, dated by archaeologists at the time of one Jesus of Nazareth. And I remembered a grandma and a little boy.